Hey guys, we're going to be getting started in just a second here. So welcome for everybody who is attending today. We welcome you, and I'm sure we have a number of others logging in here before long. And so for everybody who is here, right as we get started here, let me remind you: any and all questions, nothing is off limits at all. So make sure you ask any questions that you have, anything that I don't cover, feel free to ask, whether it's on topic or off topic. And we have a Q&A function here, and I think everything's set where I can see it and you can see it. Bob Dunn should be joining us in a second, and he will help facilitate some of the Q&A and so forth. But if you want to, even if you, as we're getting started, feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A function there. And then what we will do is get to them in the order that makes the most sense. So again, just as everybody's logging in, feel free to ask any and all questions that you have, whether it's on topic or off topic, and then we'll kind of go from there. And again, as we're getting going here, let me introduce myself a little bit. I see some familiar names, but then some unfamiliar names. I'm Stephen Oliver. I've been I started martial arts over 50 years ago. Now I opened my first school, not that I would call it a school in our current terminology, but teaching in a small, Y program and so forth. Took over from my instructors all the way back in 1974, but then ended up working for Jiu-jitsu Institute, which was the most successful commercially viable organization probably in the world in Washington, D.C. While I worked my way through Georgetown University, I ended up as a branch manager for that organization. Looks like my oh, there we go. Camera's having a hard time focusing. But um, I went from there, opened schools in Denver, and the experience in Washington was valuable. For anybody who's old enough to remember the lay of the land is Nick Kokinas, who ended up, in fact, he was already established at the time. Educational funding company at the time was just an in-house billing arm for the Jiu-jitsu Institute. But the president of the company at the time was Nick Kokinas. The general manager, vice president, head instructor was Jeff Smith. Um, um, the obviously Junri was the owner and the CEO of the company at the time, and then Ned Muffley was a branch manager and then general manager of that organization. But it was a very strong part and a place to start. And Junri, um, for those who don't remember, and many of you won't. In fact, there's even TV shows now that still have his old "Nobody Bothers Me" TV commercial with Chun and Mimi, his two young kids at the time who are now in their probably in their 50s. So you may have seen it. Nobody bothers me. Nobody bothers me either. But and actually the theme song was done by Nils Lofgren, who was a part of Neil Young's band. He's part of the E Street Band. He's been nominated or not nominated, inducted into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as part of the E Street Band. He played on Neil Young's latest album and played on all of his early albums. But he did the theme song to Junri's TV commercials. But Junri was a master of marketing. Junri was constantly had articles in the Washington Post and all the local regional newspapers. He ended up on CNN Worldwide. He ended up being the teacher to the coach of the Redskins, to many members of Senate and Congress, including Joe Biden, H.W. Bush, Newt Gingrich, the governor of Virginia, I mean, any number, Jesse Jackson Jr., but in any number of very high-profile people there in Washington, D.C. He was the official instructor for Congress for, I believe it was 50 years. But he was just a master of public relations and PR. There's Bob Dunn. And so that was my start. Then I moved to Washington from Washington, D.C. to Denver. Again, this is back in the 80s, and opened 5 schools in 18 months, 6 schools in 30 months, and ended up, by the time I was 25 years old, with 3,500 students spread out across 6 locations. And just happened to be doing all that in the middle of the Karate Kid, the first Karate Kid being released. And I had heard in the Junri Institute about what they had done with Enter the Dragon. Junri and Bruce Lee were good friends, as were Junri and Muhammad Ali. And so when I saw early preview screenings of Karate Kid, I jumped right on it. And we ended up with everything from employees in the movie theaters and uniforms, booths in the movie theaters, posters in the movie theater, slides on screen before the movie. And uh, it was, I think, greatly responsible for helping me add another 1,000 students across the location in the next year. Karate Kid 1, Karate Kid 2, Karate Kid 3, and then at the same time you had the Ninja Turtles movies came out, and then you had the Power Rangers movies. So it was a huge shot in the arm, and probably I was the only one in the country who capitalized on Karate Kid 1 and 2. Nobody else really kind of saw it coming or knew what to do. And Frank, even now, Bob, wouldn't you agree with Karate Kid Legends? Almost nobody in the industry knows how to use it effectively. You see a few people talking about, jumping on top of it, but the conversation is very unproductive. But mostly what I want to do today is give everybody some keys of what you should be doing in May and June to make sure that you have a record summer. The last Karate Kid movie, Master Smith, who's we're here in my at my home office. We have our Quick Start members, our new regular members are here at our live meeting upstairs. So he's not going to join us today, but um, what martial arts school owners tend to think. It's kind of industry lore. Bob, I talk about the other consultants as the bozo explosion, but unkindly. But most people just don't know that summer can be your busiest time, not your slowest time. So it's a huge opportunity to massively grow and develop your school over the summer. But I was saying, Master Smith, last Karate Kid movie at their Sterling School, they did 112 enrollments. And if they had been well, actually the number was 120. If they had been geared up for it even better, they would have done probably double that because they got overwhelmed. They had 400 intros in a month following the release of the last Karate Kid movie. Um, and that having been said, I mean, we had Scott and Brandy Sullivan, who are Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu School, Bam Bam Martial Arts in Houston. Wasn't that summer, but 2 summers ago. In July, they did 112 enrollments from similar live event marketing, tied into movie theaters. Rick Petito in Dallas did 850 leads in 2 weekends. Ken Gibson in Harlem did 250 leads in 1 weekend.
Master Long with Minecraft.
Yeah, yep. In California, Yana and Ryan Burtney with Mario Brothers. Uh, Last fall they did, I believe, it was 142 appointments. And just so you know, when we're talking about the numbers, here's what the ratio tends to be. If I were to make it easy, 100 leads, we'll get 90 appointments on the spot, not trying to track them down or anything. Half to 75%, but let's say worst case half, are going to show up for an intro. So now we go from 90 to 45 intros. Of those 45 intros, we'll get half of them to enroll. So 22, 23 enrollments. Those enrollments will, in most cases for our guys anyway, end up being something like $600 to $800 initially, and then 297 to 397 a month on a 12-month contract. So each enrollment is going to be worth a lifetime value of our top schools average is about $9,000 at this point. So if they enroll somebody, the amount of revenue they're going to collect is going to end up being about $9,000. So anchor that number, and the amount of revenue that they collect the day the person enrolls is going to be on average $500 to $600. So 10 enrollments would be $5,000 or $6,000. 10 enrollments is $90,000 in revenue. 100 enrollments would be 900,000 in revenue, or what is that, Bob? 90,000 in immediate revenue. So this stuff adds up in a hurry. And by the way, the way you run $1 million school with 50% net profit is you get the student value to be strong, you get the retention to be strong, and then you get a Parthenon of marketing events. And that's why I have that print of Wall Street behind me. That's the facade of Wall Street, but it's to have a bunch of different pillars we call it the Parthenon, like the Parthenon in Greece or the replica in Nashville, if you've ever been to that, is have 20 or or more things going on every month. And certainly one that you should have this month is tied to Karate Kid, but summer is just full of marketing opportunities. And Bob, I told everybody who's joined us so far, make sure ask any questions. There's nothing off the table. There's the Q&A function right here that you can ask any questions. And I believe we have the chat visible to everybody now and the Q&A visible to everybody now. And what I want to do is make sure we get, as usual, have 8 hours of material that I kind of prepared. And I'm going to try to maybe use the PowerPoint I have a little bit, but not, I don't rely on it a whole lot. But we'll go to that a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, and if I could recap too, sir, I don't want anybody to kind of glaze over or possibly miss what you said. When you said appointments, this is not collecting name and email address. This is actually booking an appointment for the prospective student to come to the school. You're blocking out a time and a date for them. So many seem to miss that when I'm speaking with them. So I just want to make sure that that is clear and understood.
Well, with everything we do, let's start with that. But I was giving a little background, but since the opening endeavor, I ran one of the top martial arts school tournaments in the country, the Mile High Karate Classic. I did that for 10 years. It was a NASCAR World Tour event, and then decided to retire it because it's more of a pain in the ass than it's worth to be a tournament promoter. Which, by the way, that's a recommendation. Don't do it. But I continued to run the schools for many, many, many years, converted the schools to franchises, and then we've eventually rolled the franchises out to all over the United States, Canada, especially multiple locations in British Columbia, Australia, New Zealand, etc. And then took over NAPNA. What's it been now, Bob? Almost 20 years ago. And we ended up growing that and then growing and eventually evolved that into or not evolved it, eventually just revolved back to what I was doing before, which was high level coaching with schools where we work individually and in small group with school owners who really want to grow at a high level. What I find is most of the so-called coaching type of things that happen today, and this, of course, Toby said I'm the longest running coaching program in the martial arts industry, and I hadn't bothered to look at it or check it out, but I'm sure that he's right. And he also said it was our original marketing program, Extraordinary Marketing, was the best-selling marketing program in the world for martial arts schools ever. I haven't checked that out, but I'm sure he's probably right too. And the two books, Mile High Maverick and Everything I Knew When I Was 22, Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 22, are probably the most distributed books ever on growing martial arts schools. I think that's probably right, Bob. I don't know. I don't know how many thousands of copies have gone out over the years, and amidst several revisions and updates on that. And by the way, Bob, we should point out to everybody who is on the meeting should have immediately received all of the free gifts that we offered. And I want to show everybody again what that is, because it's an extremely valuable package of all kinds of stuff. And pretty much everything in here are things that we used to sell for any number of different price points. But this is the page, martialartswealth.com/free book. And you should have gotten a text and an email and any number of notifications on how to get here. What we do recommend is for everybody to schedule a time initially with Bob Dunn, and we'll do an evaluation, give you some honest, direct, unvarnished, and pleasant or unpleasant, depending upon your perspective, feedback on your current results at your school. And basically the benchmarks we use is how many leads you're getting per month. Our target is we're trying to get everybody to do 20 things a month to generate 100 leads a month. How many enrollments are you getting per month? Our minimum that we're targeting typically is 20 enrollments per month, and making sure we have the conversion rates, follow-up systems to accomplish that. Looking at dropout rate, most people don't know. They think all their students love them, but we're targeting less than 2% a month dropout rate. And most of our top schools, are between 1% and 3%, but we're targeting less than 2% a month dropout rate. And then the other benchmark is we want to get where we're running 50% or better of the gross to the bottom line to the net profit. In other words, money you get to keep. So there's the ability to put a time on Bob's calendar, and then he'll put it on Jeff Smith's calendar, and then Jeff Smith put it on my calendar. But here are the free gifts. My latest book, and you can also buy this on Amazon, and they'll deliver a hard copy within a day or two. But this is a digital download of 6 simple steps to add 100 new students to your school. And an awful lot of what we're going to talk about today is drawn from the book. See, that's a digital download of that book, so you get all the content of that book immediately. But it's also, these two have been very widely distributed in the industry. This was originally part of that extraordinary marketing program that was, Toby was saying, the best-selling marketing program ever in martial arts. And again, he's probably researched it more than I have, but that's probably right. But of everything I did in that package to begin with, it was direct response marketing for martial arts schools. It was how to use the internet to market your martial arts school. So the first version of this book and the whole program was in 1999. So the internet marketing program was how to use AOL's group discussions, how to use AltaVista for search, how to use Yahoo as a directory. The only paid search option at the time was GoTo, which became Overture, which was part of which Yahoo, when Yahoo bought it, became the inspiration. The Google guys were looking to or trying to buy it, and then they just, basically cloned the concept, and it became Google pay-per-click, their way of monetizing Google. So this Way of the Mile High Maverick, everything I knew when I was 22, social media checklist. This is probably the most valuable: 7 surefire ways to shoot yourself in the foot. Not that you want to shoot yourself in the foot. And this is coming soon, or you haven't quite put the finishing touches on an updated book of extraordinary marketing for martial arts schools. And then you have these pieces. So a little bit more background on me, who I am, and why I'm credible here. And then this was a recent cover story in Go to Karate's magazine, recent cover story in Martial Arts World with Jeff Smith and myself. Here's that free report on using Karate Kid Legends to market your martial arts schools. Make sure you've subscribed to our YouTube channel, connect with me on LinkedIn, follow Twitter, follow the Facebook page, and so forth. So if you haven't gotten that, again, it's martialartswealth.com/free book. And I would recommend, certainly right now, you start with this. The combination of these two is what many people say is the most valuable thing they've ever come across in the martial arts business. But we've gifted everybody in the meeting that. There's no charge, no obligation, no expectation. But make sure that you have all of that. Getting back to summer marketing and opportunities. Again, I want to point out that summer should be your busiest time of the year for new enrollments. It's not a slow period of time at all. So, Bob, we've been seeing, pretty much all of our clients, they have a big May and June, and then they have a huge July and August, then they have a big back to school. And I keep talking to people, say, well, we're really trying to make sure that we tighten our belt and, have some savings so we can weather the summer. No. Summer is a busy time. It's a busy time for marketing. Certainly, it's a time when you have to spend a little bit of extra effort to make sure your attrition doesn't get out of control. So when people go off on vacations, that you get them back and so forth. But as far as new students in the door, and this isn't a new thing. I mean, I could go back 20 years, and my goal for each school was to generate 1,000 leads over the summer, so that we could market the hell out of them for back to school and drive tons of traffic back to school. And if you've got enough stuff going on that you generated 1,000 leads over the summer, you're going to do pretty damn a good number of enrollments in July and August too. So, summer really is a tremendous marketing opportunity. But what I Bob, what we should say again is we have a tremendous amount of content that I want to cover. And again, I don't want to leave the meeting here without every and all questions being answered. So feel free to start putting them in the Q&A. We'll get to them when we get around to it. But when it's appropriate in context. But what I will say is the way to really master this stuff. Bob, I was talking about this on that podcast with Ali and Dwayne Brummett a couple of weeks ago, but Dwayne had said, "Well, share anything you're comfortable with. We don't want you to give away any secrets that people who are paying you only get." But and my answer was, "I'll answer any question. There's nothing off the table." But back when I had grown the school so fast, I was the first keynote speaker for EFC's first convention. In fact, Muhammad Ali was there back in the 80s. And the theme of the speech was ideas are easy, implementation's a bitch, right? And what we found, going back to the NAPNA days, is we could load up with CDs and VHS tapes or DVDs or whatever. We could give people all the ideas. They still didn't get it done, right? What everybody needs to get it done is just like your student is. I could give everybody a video now. I could give them a video link, and here's what a front kick looks like. But we all know that without working in a class, without working in a drills, working in a pad, working it on a, hitting a target, working on all of that stuff, grappling has the same dynamic. Without a knowledgeable instructor looking over their shoulder, giving them feedback, without the motivation of the team, of the rest of the classmates who are implementing, some of them who are ahead of them, some of them who are behind them, without that peer pressure to continue to move forward, a student doesn't grow. And the same thing is true, we've concluded, with martial arts students, is we can give you all the ideas in the world, but when you have a peer group that's working together, sharing what's happening in the field, you have a mentor who's been there, done that, and certainly nobody in the industry has been there, done that more than myself, Jeff Smith, Bob Dunn, Greg Moody. From a standpoint of implementing systems, operating multiple schools, being in the trenches ourselves, being there in recession, being there in peak markets, everything else, is without a teacher mentor looking over your shoulder and giving you feedback, and sometimes kicking your ass to get you moving, and without a peer group to support you, to share what's actually working in the field, to diagnose whatever's not working well, the implementation just doesn't happen, right? It's and Bob, what I was always finding is no matter how thoroughly I explain the idea, whether on audio, on video, in a book or whatever, there was always that 5% in the mind of a unique situation they didn't know how to deal with, or a little bit of implementation they didn't know, or a lot of times it's just, I'm in a small group environment, and 5 other people have taken action and I haven't taken action yet. So the peer pressure of, well, I better get off my ass kicks in. Is that a fair way to describe that dynamic, Bob?
Yes, sir. 100%. And the other thing too, just to kind of spin off from that, is that if again, I talked to hundreds and hundreds of school owners, and they've gone out and they've checked other programs or so-called coaches. What I find is that seems like there's some coaches out there in the industry that have taken like bites out of some of the training that you've actually taught in the past, and it allows them to get to a certain point. And what we find is that I mean, how many times do we have people that circle back to us because they went and they searched out some other help, and then they got to a certain point where they plateaued, or they found themselves being the biggest dog in the room. And that can be a challenge too for school owners. So you're definitely not going to find that with us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it. I mean, that comes back to a conversation I had with John Grade many years ago. As I asked him how it was going. He was the original founder of NAPNA. And he said, "Oh, it's really, everything's going great. I just miss, I miss being in a group where I was surrounded with people who are doing a lot better than I was." Right? Is now I'm surrounded. I'm the big fish in a small pond rather than the small fish in a big pond. And like upstairs we have this is just for our new members, but we have I think $4 million schools, and then we have a couple of new members, and
And those are single locations.
Yeah, yeah, single locations doing that, not multiples.
Right.
And by the way, the five school or six school um, um, that I was running, inflation adjusted, we were doing over 5 million a year annually, back in the 80s. Junior Institute, again, if you look at inflation adjusted, the average location was 750 to 1.2 million. My top location was probably 2 million inflation adjusted for back then. Obviously, you have some that are at the top and some of that are not doing quite as well. But it's not like that's a new phenomenon to us. The actual, dollar inflator has changed quite a bit over the years, especially last, 4 or 5, but it's not a new phenomenon. But again, keep in mind that's the component to really get things going, is being surrounded by a peer group with a lot of people who are doing a lot better than you are, hearing what's happening real time in the field, not just, some consultant's memory of what used to happen. And even the most of the coaches and consultants out there in the industry, what I find is most of them never ran their own chain of schools, and running your own chain of schools is a completely different animal than running a single school. Just because somebody has run a single school somewhat successfully doesn't mean they know how to replicate it. With me, all the way back, over 40 years ago, I had to teach 50 staff members how to do what we were doing. I had, I didn't basically most of the time didn't do any of the enrollments myself. I had periods where I did startups and I did turnarounds, but most of the time I didn't do the enrollments myself. It's being done by the program director. Most of the time I wasn't teaching any of the, white belt, intermediate, advanced classes. That was being done by trained head instructors. So you've got to have somebody who knows how to replicate the systems to train you and train you how to train your staff. And you don't want to be in a situation where you're stuck on the floor 40 hours a week teaching all the classes. You want to be able to develop a full-time instructor. You want to be able to develop program directors. You want to get people who can help with marketing and so forth if you're ever going to grow your school while maintaining high profitability. But again, I'll say it again. Any and all questions, ask. And what we're going to do is we're going to jam through a lot of content here today. But what we do is, just so you know, is we have a 6-week program. It's it's an entry level foot in the door to really get down all this stuff. And we're kind of theming it right now with Karate Kid, but the reality is it's how to have your best summer ever, how to do 100 new enrollments this summer, a net 100 new students over the summer. So it runs for 6 weeks, and what we do is teach you everything you need to know to, without a big budget, without spending a ton of money in advertising, how to create your best summer ever, how to capitalize from Karate Kid, but all the other opportunities here in May, June, July, and August. And we'll show you everything in 6 weeks that it takes to have a record summer. And again, the promise is in 6 weeks, you'll learn everything you need to know in order to add 100 students in 60 to 90 days. And again, for our guys, 100 students would be almost $1 million in revenue. My guess is your average revenue per student isn't there. If it's not, it's because of retention, it's because of price points, it's because of program structure, and perhaps it's because of goal setting and so forth early on. We teach our high level members all of that stuff, how to bring in new students, really have them committed to train to black belt, how to keep the dropout rate as low as possible with the student quality as high as possible. We don't water down anything. In fact, we strengthen the quality all the way along the way. And in fact, my argument is the reason I wanted to get really good at marketing is so I didn't have to tolerate anybody I didn't want in the school if they had a bad attitude or the parents had a bad attitude, and so that I could have the highest possible standards for our students So I wasn't worried. And that basically, the higher we move the standards, the better the retention got. But I didn't have to worry about, I don't want to be too strict on this person because they might drop out or something like that. If you have plenty of flow in the front door, you can be selective on who you accept. You can be selective on who you renew. You can be selective on who you promote, and you can really develop the highest quality leadership team and bench strength. So that's the premise here. So again, the going back to, and Bob, I'll sloppily share some of these PowerPoints. I'm not going to put it in full presentation mode, but that's big enough for everybody to read it, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that looks
Yeah.
good.
But key marketing principles: market in a vacuum. Create a school where you have the highest possible student value. So again, we're at the point where our average top, our top 50% of the schools, they're in the $8,000 to $10,000 a month average lifetime value of a student, meaning that we know, statistically on average, everybody in Enroll is going to end up investing at least 8,000 or more in tuition over the lifetime of their involvement. And of course, some of them it's a lot more than that, and some of them, don't make it for the first 90 days. And another is the highest value of your time and effort is to focus on long-term student retention, long-term student quality. The marketing of vacuum point is important. 20 years ago, if I just relied on Yellow Pages, I was relying on somebody who had already had the idea to start martial arts, and they're looking through the book, finding all of my competitors. And nowadays, what I want to do is I don't want to just wait for somebody to Google martial arts lessons, Roswell, Georgia, or whatever. What I want to do is I want to get out in front of them before they've had the idea, and get in front of them and give them the idea and show them what the benefits and convince them of the value of that. Um, the the second thing that I've mentioned already, and this is a graphic to illustrate, but you always want to build a Parthenon. You want to have a lot of things going on. Um, um, it's around what I would, uh, Mr. Dunn. I was just talking to our group upstairs, and I was telling them really there's three things, and now it sounds kind of stupid and non-technical, but there's really three things that keep schools from succeeding. I think you would agree with this. Number one is do more stuff, right? So if you have three marketing activities going on, what would happen if you had 30, right? I hear school owners who are doing like three things to get students and only enrolling 4 students a month. Well, what if you just did more stuff, right? What if you had more live events and more stuff going on in local elementary schools, more stuff going on with local employers for their employees? What if you had more things going on with churches and Boy Scouts and community organizations? What if you had more stuff going on internal, especially if you're over 100 students, more buddy events, birthday parties, one thing or another going on? So number one is do more stuff. Number two is get a higher value per student. Which can be charged more, but it's really about retention, quality, program structure, a lot of moving parts to that. And number three is just ask more people. We get people who, they generate leads and they never get around to asking them to come in for an appointment. They generate intros, but they never get around to asking them to enroll. They generate enrollments, but they never get around to asking them to renew. But always have a Parthenon of activities going on. And so here's a different way to illustrate that is, and some of these things are kind of dated. Newspaper inserts still work, direct mail, infomercials have kind of died off, but birthday parties, holiday event promotions, movie promotions, internal referral things, various buddy day type of things, um, online pay-per-click, social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you get the idea. Have a lot of different things going on. Um, specifically the movie promotion thing I mentioned that I kind of got the idea from all the way back from Enter the Dragon, what Junior Institute had done, and really hit the ground running with the last Karate Kid. But this new Karate Kid Legends, I think it's going to have a lot of opportunity. They're projecting 200 to 300 million in revenue. It's coming off of the um, Cobra Kai series, which by the way I hated. I don't think having two karate karate gang fights was helpful, um, but it was very popular. And then the Karate Kid Legends movie is projected to do $200 to $300 million in revenue. It should have a lot of traffic at the theaters, but if it's done well, and I think they're going to be back to the Miyagi theme, which was what really Karate Kid 1, 2, and so forth was really effective with, was the philosophy rather than just the action. The series, of course, got to be too much conflict, too much action, and too much stupidness. Um, and I already gave most of these examples of, but we could go, lots and lots of other examples. But actually, I got the number wrong. It's 157 enrollments in 8 weeks that Jeff Smith did at Sterling. I think the 112 was Scott and Brandy Sullivan. But there's all kinds of things that you can do with the Karate Kid Legends in theater promotions. I'll give you here's a simple example, simple booth with a price wheel, and we have the scripting for getting them to the wheel, and scripting for how to interact with them after they spun the wheel, and scripting for how to get them into the appointment. Here's another example of a booth setup. This is obviously a trade show environment, but not a movie theater, but the same idea. But it's also a good time to tie in all your guerrilla marketing and your also known as grassroots marketing, publicity on all the local, regional, even national TV, online, different media, follow up, and so forth. But you got to have really strong follow up. You got to tie email, direct mail, text messaging, voicemail, live person following up to get all this stuff to really work. So the follow-up sequence, and we can train you on all this stuff, but we use all of the above. We make the appointments, as you said, on the spot, and then we live outbound people following up with text messaging, direct mail, broadcast voicemail, also called ringless or voicemail drops, email, various social media. There's not a dash in Facebook, but and we're also doing a lot of experimentation with inbound and outbound voice AI, which is right on the cusp of being an effective tool. I'm not sure it's quite there yet, but Bob, we shall see how all of our experimentation goes on that. We've got quite a bit invested in developing that at the highest level. But here's from that 6 Simple Steps book. The thing that I thought came out best in the book, in fact, I'll go back and walk through it, was we showed pictures and actual results. Right here was Amanda Christensen. They did 52 leads, 44 appointments at this one event. Here's another example. They did 68 appointments with 110 leads. This was in Virginia. Jeff did 32 appointments at this event. What do we have here? Well, it doesn't give a number. But if we go back to all the examples in the book that I'd recommend you go through is, and where did I put that? Bob, where on my desk is it?
It is over there.
Is it? Thanks for the help. You're a lot of help. But
it was in the add 100 students in martialartswealth.com/free book.
There you go. There you go. So start all over, even though I had it queued up on my desktop, which always has too much stuff on it anyway. But that advice got a video of me talking in the background, so that's not very helpful. I typed free video, not free book.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
So I ended up with me talking in the background, which I'm not sure if it was annoying for you, but it certainly was annoying for me. But yeah, again, if you get the physical copy or the digital download of this book, you'll see it's just chock full of, some real examples of, our various $1 million schools. And, there's Jan Lappin, who just retired with her new Porsche 911 convertible. Jeff Smith and his Jag. Here's Tim Harrison. That was, just this, that was a year ago. They did 100,000 in January. 114 in November. You can see real results all the way through here. But when you get into the all the actual marketing premises and structure, you'll see lots and lots of how-to photos and so forth. But most importantly is that's the one I just showed you. Most importantly, you're going to see them commenting on exactly what kind of results they had, right? Is almost all these things you're gonna get from our client schools eyes or directly from their word of mouth. Here was Matt White did 50 appointments for this one event. We can kind of go on and on and on and on and on, but you get the idea. But I would certainly
That's just the
recommend.
one event. I mean, that's, understand everyone that that's those numbers are above and beyond what everything else is driving to the school. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just really important that
Here's a program, that's one of our schools at a local elementary school. Looks like they have rounding errors, 70 kids in class in an enrichment program. Again, in that particular thing, the numbers are however many kids in the elementary school. If there's 500 kids in the elementary school, we'll get 20% of them more or less in the after-school enrichment program. So it was 500 kids, we get 100 kids in the program. Of the 100 kids in the program, we'll enroll a third. So that's plus or minus 33 enrollments, 30 to 35 enrollments. And so if there was 300 kids in the school, 60 in the after school program, 20 enrollments, well worth the time and effort on that. And again, Bob, how many times do we talk to students? This was, different versions of what I call a children's hospital flyer. There's, staff shirts we did when we were doing children's hospital. This was back the tsunami, different things we've done it. But we were generating so much traffic. This is one of the ideas I gave this to Tim and Dave Kovar, and they were getting so much traffic on that they had to stage it out. So there's any number of ideas built into here, but Bob, that 6-week program we do again is the foot in the door. Just to let everybody know what we decided to do is give everybody who's on the meeting today a foot in the door on that, and you can try it out for the first couple of weeks for just $97. And what you're going to get with that, and I'll show you the various components, but what you're going to get with that is you're going to get a private evaluation meeting with Bob Dunn, with world champion Jeff Smith, who's been in the martial arts business for well over 50 years, and then with me. And we're going to go through the benchmarks of your school and look at your marketing activities, look at your opportunities that are coming up. We're going to give you, advice worth $20,000 to $100,000. Again, no cost, no obligation, no sales pitch. Just we're happy to look at your school and really give you our honest advice. In fact, I talked to somebody recently, and I basically said, one of your options is to close down the damn thing because you can't keep doing what you're doing. And he took me up on that advice. Probably it was, good idea in his part. That's usually not the advice. The advice usually is, here's what you can do for better marketing. Here's what you can do for better retention. Here's what you can do for better value. Here's what you can do for a better closing process. And Bob, what we were just discussing is almost everybody who comes to us thinks, well, I don't need help in my closing process because everybody that comes in enrolls. Well, if you're doing, 3 or 4 intros a week and you close them all, what happens when you stress test the thing and all of a sudden you flood in 100 intros, right? And so what we're always teaching you to do is really how to get those systems down pat, that when you open the floodgates, you're going to keep a really tight ratio. Showing you how to automate what can be automated, systematize everything. If they, with or without it being automated, but systematize everything and then create a consistent flow from there. But with the 6-week thing, we're going to give you access to our full member site and discussion forum, and I'll show you what that looks like. This is only for members here. But what we do is we have all of the $1 million schools, all of our top schools are in here. What you'll always get is when we do a live Zoom meeting, I'm on the wrong link here. When we do a live Zoom meeting, we're always posting the video recording of it as well as a summary and the transcripts and everything, any and all of the support tools and so forth. So for the Karate Kid thing specifically, we have lots of examples of what people are doing, all the scripting to be used in the live event, examples of what the price wheel and all that stuff looks like, who to talk to in order to get into the movie theaters directly, how to build relationship with the theater managers, what the other opportunities are that are coming up short term, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you get full access to all of this material. Bob, this was the stuff I was looking at on our quick start meeting. I thought I had it pinned to the top here. So let's see. Now I do. Pinned to the top. Um, so all of that you get access to on this 6-week program. But again, we'll give you a chance to jump into it for a couple of weeks before you're any further obligation. But you're also going to get um, 3 different or 4 different programs. You're going to get the 6 weeks to fill your school course. And then we have this in another form digitally right now, but we're going to have it up in this place. The Ultimate Referrals Machine, the Ambassador Program, and the Complete Fill Your School Program. The Complete Fill Your School Program, we were selling it for $1,997. In fact, we started at $2,497. And it includes the entire sales system that we use both for like an adult MMA or BJJ school for kids program, the intro format and process, the enrollment process, pricing, but lots and lots of marketing. The referral machine and the ambassador program are both 2 different referral systems. And pretty quickly they're going to be accessible here, but we'll give you digital links for all of that material immediately. So the other piece of it, the most important piece of it, or maybe second most important, but we're going to work with you individually, Bob Dunn, myself, Jeff Smith, but we're also going to give you access to all of this content. But the most important perhaps is the 6 weeks that are actually live Zoom meetings, but they're not webinar format. They're live interactive. You'll see, pictures of, I probably have some here, but you'll see pictures of the screen. You know what a Zoom meeting looks like, but this is what it'll look like each week. Is you'll be live, fully interactive. You don't have to raise your hand or anything. You just want to answer any questions that you have. Well, let's see if I can find the damn screen. But that's
Okay.
did I get the right one?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's what it looks like. In fact, this was our Tuesday meeting. This is Jason Purcell. He's running about a $1.5 million school in Seattle. This is Antonius, who actually runs 3 locations, 2 in Texas, 1 in New Jersey, with about 3,500 students. Steve Simeon in Minneapolis, St. Paul, that would be about $1 million this year. Tim Harrison did, I think, 1.2 million this year. Travis Took of Team Took, he's about 750,000 this year, I believe. Krista Wells did 1.3 million last year in Seattle. Marty Callahan, one of the top most respected Shotokan stylists in the world.
And Ji Hai Lee, she was a startup. I mean, yeah.
Yep. Ji Hai Lee went from 0 to 40,000 a month in 90 days in Dallas. Ryan and his wife Yana just had a baby. Ryan Burton, that's the example I used of they did over 120 appointments with the Mario Brothers movie, among other things. They have a 4-month-old, so a brand new baby. And then this is staff member, but Stephen DiCastillo down in Tampa, their Krav Maga school. Jeffrey Cash, a Kempo school. This is Tim Harrison's staff members and so forth. But that's what the meetings look like each week. 10, 15 people, live interactive, able to ask any questions. And again, just as a reminder, any and all questions you have, be sure and ask them so that we get to it before we're done today. So Andy, Jessica, John, welcome. Norm, Sarah, Virgil, ask any and all questions you have. I don't want to leave without answering any of your questions. But what you really should be doing when it comes to your opportunities with Karate Kid and your summer marketing, One is most of our schools are creating lots of internal referral activities and events. Oftentimes, like the last Karate Kid Legends movie, not this is Legends, the last Karate Kid movie, the first Jackie Chan movie, we did, I think, 8 preview screenings for my schools where we got early tickets in conjunction with the ad agency and the radio stations, and we're able to take our students anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks before it actually debuted. And so we had enough tickets where we made it a buddy event, and every time we had staff outside and greeted people and anybody that they brought, we would make appointments. We also have a lot of our guys who are just renting out a theater, maybe on Thursday night of opening weekend, and then promoting it as a big bring a friend event. If you didn't know, you can print like Super Bowl tickets, really nice tickets, very inexpensively, and you can do sign up lists, and there's all kinds of other things to generate traffic, but you can do all kinds of interesting things to generate traffic. And basically the requirement is each student brings a couple of their friends, and it's an easy thing to get people to. um, we also do a lot of things in the theater, and I had mentioned, with the original Karate Kid movies, and with like Master Smith of Sterling, Stephen D. Castillo has this going on in Tampa. Andre has this going on also in Florida. I could probably go through 10 other of our current schools. A lot of them have, I know Stephen and Andre do. All the staff members are going to be in their uniform for the weekend before Karate Kid comes out, the weekend and the weekend after. So for 2 or 3 weekends, booths, tablings in the theater, and the script to get them to the booth, the script to make the appointment, and the follow-up systems to get them in. Um, Oftentimes, I had posters in, all the movie poster holders, the ticket takers, or the when they bought tickets, they were getting guest passes. Nowadays, if you're a movie attendee, I never show up at the theater without having already bought it on Fandango, or bought on the Alamo app, or bought it on the Stubbs app for AMC, or whatever it is. So most people are coming in just showing their iPhone. But between the booth, all the things that you can do in the theater, there's on-screen advertising available as well. That's the type of stuff that you have to buy nowadays. I always got it comped, but you have to buy nowadays, probably not as valuable as all the other stuff. But the boost that the market will get from Karate Kid is something that can be used with summer camps in your area, with employers in your area, with elementary schools, in the elementary, middle, and high school, depending upon where you're at. Is you may be ending up with they're getting out of school quickly. So you really have a limited window to get out there. We'll be on this coming Wednesday. That's when our 6 week live meetings are. This coming Wednesday, we'll be talking about all the things you need to do before school's out to maximize that back to school hit. Because I would always have flyers going out to all the kids, sometimes in the guise of good grade rewards, good attendance rewards, all that kind of stuff. We could go in and do PE teacher for the day. And again, I hear a lot of people say, well, I did school talks and that didn't work. Well, school talks was just a bastardization of my PE teacher for the day idea, which I started back in the 80s. But it missed the key components. It missed the component of how to capture their contact information, proactively follow up, and turn them into appointments. So I could do all the school talks I want, where I go into Mrs. Jones' third grade class, say, come Saturday to take a class, give out, flyers or something like that. And it's not that it doesn't work at all. It just works so poorly that almost anybody doing it gets burnt out doing it, and then they say it doesn't work. My PE teach for the day, if there was 500 kids in the school, I'd get 800, not 800, I'd get 80%. So 500 kids in the school, I'd get 400 name, address, phone number, email address, and I'd get at least half of them say, yes, I want to come in and try this out. So, completely different system. But we're going to go over all that. But the 6 week deal, we we start this coming Wednesday. So next Wednesday, it's 60 to 90 minutes. We plan on 60, but we don't ever, leave without answering any, questions. It'll go for 6 weeks. Again, it'll be work with Mr. Dunn, Jeff Smith, and myself personally, be interactive in a small group session with other school owners who are doing this, and be interactive with our $1 million schools, all the top schools. They'll be answering questions for you, and you'll be seeing their results as well. Have full access to the discussion forum, but also the referral programs, the complete ambassador program, complete ultimate referral machine, plus that complete fill your school program, plus the 6-week course that goes along with the 6-week program that's focused on guerrilla marketing, grassroots marketing. And you can get started in all that. The program's $9.97, but you can get started for $97, get fully immersed in the next 2 weeks, go through all the material on the site, get the programs, go through that as much as you want, set the evaluation with Bob Dunn, with Jeff Smith and myself, go through all of that. If you want to bail out, there's no obligation. You don't have to continue on. If you continue on, we'll bill it at $175 a week for the balance of that. Bob, there was Andy had some questions here. In fact, if you want, you can just open it up and people can join in video and or audio. Do you want to just let anybody who has a question jump in live, Bob?
Yes, sir. I'm doing that now. Andy, are you in there?
I sure am.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, go ahead and just ask your question and anything else you want, Andy.
Okay, well,
but open it up for everybody else. So anybody else who wants to ask anything, they can
Yes, sir.
just jump in on audio and or video. You can put them on video too if you want. But go ahead,
yeah.
Andy.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I've been running, when we started almost 9 years ago, my first P&O, it was kind of a new thing. We were the new, kid around here, and we had, 55 people show up, and it was a blast. And, kind of anything I did, a lot of people kind of came in. And I was, enrollment built relatively rapidly. And I recognized that there would be an inevitable slowdown. But one of the things I've noticed about things like my parents' nights out, for example, which is like a 4-hour pizza party, I'm sure you're very familiar with it. Now the local elementary school is doing it. And since they don't have to pay overhead and their people are already employed, they
are already government employees.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's they do 25 or $30, and nobody really cares if the kids have a great time or not. They run wild in there. They're not really getting anything out of it. And so the same thing with like self-defense seminars and lots of other events that we're doing, birthday parties. People like them. They come to them all the time. They hear that we're great at them or whatever it is, but the enrollment is just not. It's not there. I mean, when we first got here, I went from 0 students in November of 2016 to 100 within 6 or 8 months, and then after that, it just didn't necessarily go anywhere. And so, has the market moved on? I know I'm missing a lot of things. I'd like to hear more about all that.
Not only has the market not moved on, the market is booming. So that's not it. Now, I will tell you, the market is changing constantly. So what I'll give you a personal example. I was a founding member of Educational Funding Company's board of directors for 10 years or 15 years. That was like the top people in the world were part of that group. But all of my friends who were part of that group, in almost all cases, they got to the peak of their game like 15, 20 years ago and had systems that were working great, and now they're struggling to survive. Or, even if they have a fairly big operation, they're not particularly profitable. And what's happening is online and offline, the market is changing constantly. Take a simple example. For years, I hated Facebook. I thought it was a complete waste of time.
Right.
Then we started figuring out how to dial it in. Their algorithm started changing, and we partnered up with an agency that we teach and work with to make them really good. Then it saved everybody's butt during COVID, because our schools, most of them were even or up as much as 30% during COVID. Facebook's engagement went up 660% during COVID. The results were great, and the results continue to be good. Not the same level as they were during COVID, but continue to be really good. But that changes all the time. Google is right now their lifespan is threatened because ChatGPT, Grok, and their own Gemini are threatening search. Right? I don't know about you, but about 95% of what I used to go to Google for, I go now to ChatGPT or Grok for. So You know, search engine optimization has been very important, continues to be important, but the dynamic is going to change dramatically. But out in the market with all of that kind of stuff, the usually the big key is people, you or anybody, you can have the idea of the event, but not have the pieces to convert them to appointment, convert them to intros, and that's where when we what we're doing for all of our clients is we're looking at their stats every week, right? So, Jason Purcell, who's upstairs, he did 120,000 last month. He's thriving on birthday parties. I mean, they they have 100 new leads for the month so far. It's the 15th of the month, mostly from birthday parties. But they've also got down not only how to fill the birthday parties, but how to make sure they convert them immediately to appointment, convert the appointments to intros, convert the intros to enrollments. And so the whole system, all the way through the pipeline, is nailed down with the right process and scripts. So,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
yeah, go
that's the
ahead.
piece that's the piece that because we run birthday parties and we get great reviews on them. We have a pretty steady stream of people calling to want to do them. We give them away as gift certificates to churches and whatever school groups because it's kind of an easy give and there's a lot of value coming out to it. But like, yeah, those are the pieces. Like uh, and that's where I feel like there's this big disconnect because we send a lovely seeing you, we send a 3 count flow, we follow up with phone calls, and somehow it doesn't add up to anything really, you know.
Well, I mean, this could be a couple hour conversation, Andy, and Virgil has a question here too. But here's two things on that, Andy. Is one is on the 6 week program, we'll get into that in depth and solve it. So we'll have, we won't be time constrained like we are today. So I would recommend you jump into that with us. But the other side of it is with the birthday parties, let me just give you four quick ideas. Number one is every new student you enroll, schedule their birthday party the day you enroll. And that ultimate referral machine program is basically about how to do a birthday party without it being their birthday. So what we would do is, if you do 20 enrollments a month, everybody's either scheduling their birthday party. So I enroll them in May and their birthday is in June, July, August. I'm scheduling them for their birthday party. Their birthday was in March, April, January. It just happened. I'm going to schedule them for, a celebratory pizza party. I'll also schedule their birthday party, but it's 9 months out. It's not gonna do me much good immediately. So what I want to do is I want to get really good at making sure it's a good referral event, not just that you generate a lot of birthday parties. The second thing is you want to make sure that you're getting name, address, phone number, email address, all the contact information for all of the attendees at least 2 weeks before the birthday party happens. And then number two is either before the party, meaning a couple days or a week before, or before they get into the school and the party actually starts, you want to have a follow-up appointment for each and every person who comes in. So what I never want to do is have the party and it's all excited, and then maybe the parents are showing up to pick them up, and I say to all the kids who really had a good time, you all get a free week or two free lessons or free month or whatever your offer is. And then you say, if you want to come in for that, go over and see Marge at the front desk and she'll schedule your next appointment. That never works, right? And you also don't want to do all that, then let them out the door without having their follow-up appointment. So that's like number one, and number two is make sure you have all of the contact information for all the attendees at least 2 weeks ahead of time, which is um, once you systematize in the right way is easy to do. Two is before the party starts, and we all think we're going to run such a great party, the kids are going to be excited, they're going to be dying to come back. And then what happens after the party is in the parents' minds is, well, they're really busy right now. We'll call them back and schedule it. And literally the minute they walk out the door, they've forgotten about you and they're on to something else, right? And the most idiotic advice I've seen among the bozo explosion is I had the painful experience of watching a bit of somebody's video, and they said, we don't want to bug people, so we put a guest pass in everybody's gift bag, and then if they're interested, they'll call us for lessons. That's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It just doesn't work. The other thing I would say, Andy, is, and this is sounding a little bit like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I really don't mean it to be. You want to get the appointment immediately before the party, or even a week before the party for the follow-up. And we'll go over the script and all that for that. But you also want to follow up with those people, not for a week, but for a year, 2 years, 3 years. And well, what is happening in the market with everything, and I've been saying this for 30 years, but what's happening in the market is the sales cycle is elongated. So if you interact with somebody on your time schedule, in other words, it's Joey's birthday, they haven't come down looking for a new activity. What happens is may not be the right time for them to do something. July might be, or it might be September, or it might be next January. And there's several reasons why they may not enroll today. One is they may need to be more educated on what you do. Number two is they may have, vacation scheduled. Grandma might be in the hospital. They're already in some other sports activity. There's all kinds of other things that could get in the way, right? So whether it's they need to be more educated, or needs to be a right time and place in their life, if you stay in front of them and nurture them with direct mail, email, text, being, having them feed to your YouTube channel, your podcast, having them on social media, and they're seeing you all the time. If there's literally nowhere they can look, the online marketing terminology for that is retargeting. If you're basically retargeting them everywhere, but especially you're showing up in their mailbox with physical stuff. That's why it's nice to have a book. You can mail them the book, and if nothing else, it hangs around. Even back when primarily I was using newspaper ads to drive traffic, I would hear of people who had torn the the full page ad and the TV guide out 7 times, and it was, there were 7 copies under the magnet in the kitchen. They kept meaning to get around to it. So you want to continue to nurture them in every way you can, and if you don't get them in May, maybe you get them in July, maybe you get them for back to school, maybe you get them for New Year's, whatever it might be. And obviously we'll gear up and go at them harder. We'll go at them harder for a summer offer, and then we'll go at them harder for a back to school offer, and then we'll go, harder on a Halloween or a fall offer, and then harder on a New Year's offer. But you've got to get good at converting them early on, and you've got to get good at nurturing them basically forever. Does that help, Andy?
That certainly it points in the right direction. Implementation of a lot of that is another matter. But anyway,
well, that was first thing I said is ideas are easy, implementation's a bitch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your extended answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's all about systematizing, and some of that systemization can be automated, right? So CRM systems and the terminology of sequential autoresponder, programming in ways to sequentially retarget, sequentially email, sequentially direct mail, all that can be automated, sequentially do voicemail drops. And then you have to have human beings, which again, we're experimenting with live outbound voice AI. I'm not sure it's quite there yet, but having that systems in place so that either the automation works automatically, right? I mean, that's the purpose of software, or that it cues human beings to do the right follow-up and to get on top of it. And if you don't mind me asking, where's your school at now? How many students do you have? What are you teaching? Give me a little bit more detail.
Yeah, we're in the vicinity of about 150. I've had a couple of signups over the last couple of days renewing for my after school program, which I count as a member. So we've got probably 25 doing a BJJ program, which is not a profit center. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
I've got probably about 100 front door kids coming in to do, martial art classes, and kids, teens, and adults. And then I've got about 50 kids in my after school program who are also doing martial arts as a part of that. So we've got about we're probably at about 160, 165 total right now.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as I mentioned in conversations, the last 4 months have been brutal. And so I was really hoping. I was at 171 in December, and I'm not really sure where it's all going, but I was hoping to crack 180, 185 as a natural course of events for this spring, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, that's all completely doable.
Oh,
And
I'm sure it is. I just didn't think that. I thought I had obviously a lot of work to do to improve the studio, but I really felt that I had, based on previous years when the school wasn't as good, not as developed, not as mature, I was gaining in the spring, and this spring I did not gain.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but I'll tell you, it's not the market. I mean, we have people thriving all over North America. Well, even UK and New Zealand, Australia, but certainly throughout the United States and Canada. But what you can't rely on is the same thing is going to work the same way, every quarter of every year of every month. Is in part of the rationale for the Parthenon is, a key principle, I guess, in my belief system is Murphy's Law is real, and if you have 20 things going on, if you rely on the one big thing that you were expecting to be the big hit, inevitably something happens. My experience was with live events, we would have tornadoes, blizzard, or hail, and so what was going to be our biggest event of the year was bad. We used to have an event called All About Kids where parents from all over town would come out, and with multiple schools we could draw from the entire metro area. But some years it was just, the only way to make it productive was to pitch joint ventures with the other vendors because there weren't any participants there. With after school programs, I had one of the schools where I popped in to do a turnaround. I did 465 enrollments in 9 months. Peak month was 78 enrollments. And we had that going on through all out of my school. And this little thing called Columbine hit. And I had 3 schools within 2 miles of Columbine, but all of the stuff that we were doing in public and private schools got shut down for a year and a half. So if we hadn't had a whole bunch of other stuff going on, we would have been dead in the water with that. Google and social media are like that. It's not going to be consistent every month. Sometimes it's going to hit big. Sometimes it's going to not hit big, and all the kind of internal things that you do. But if you have enough stuff going on and you have a broad enough range, but you also got to have this, the systemic pieces in place, but the tactics and the training to go along with it. And Virgil, did you have a question as well? Bob, what's the question that he asked there? I can't
I
read
sent
it.
a question during, I sent a question through.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to know how important school size was, the square footage of your school. I know you've mentioned $1 million schools and so forth, but what are some of the smallest square foot school sizes that you know of who are like $1 million schools?
Virgil, how big is your school right now?
2,400 square foot.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, my first school was exactly that, 2,400 square feet,
Uh-huh.
and it peaked out at 680 active students.
Oh, wow.
Now, I will fairly say it was a zoo. So it was a bit of a challenge, but let me give you a quick rule of thumb. We kind of concluded over the years that 7 square foot per active student, so 2,100 square foot would be good for 300 active students, and our $1 million schools tend to be between 250 and 350 active.
Okay.
Okay. So at 300 active, they'll be somewhere between 90 and 120,000 a month right now, and our mission is at 300 active to get them to about 150 a month. So,
Okay.
and by the way, Andy had mentioned having a Brazilian Jiu-jitsu program, an after-school program, a martial arts program. In almost all cases, that's one program. That's their traditional martial arts program, whatever it might be, Brazilian Jiu-jitsu or MMA or Taekwondo or Kempo or whatever it might be. That's one program that's not transported after school care, and that's students coming in twice, maybe 3 times a week. So,
Okay.
so at 2,400 square foot, I mean, you could be a $1.5 million a year school with no problem.
Okay, great. Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
hey, yeah, I hate to jump in again. Can I ask a follow-up on that? So
Sure.
out of that 2,400 square feet, how much is matted? Like, what's your general the ratio of, like you got aisles and you've got, lobby space, bathrooms, walkways off the mat. Like, so generally, what's the rule of thumb about the ratio of mat to total square footage?
Well, you certainly don't want much wasted space, but within 2,000 or 2,100 or 2,400 square foot, we'll always have at least one private office where you can have a meeting, an intro room, a little reception area. Parents seating will typically be benches along the wall rather than like a bleachers area. I really like to keep the parents as close to and engaged. Actually, I like to keep the parents in uniform on the floor, but I like to keep it as engaged. I'll have no pro shop, no other wasted space. And typically, over the years, we got rid of dressing rooms altogether, a couple of bathrooms, and, the kids are kind of expected to come, in uniform, and adults can come in and change in the restrooms. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do see schools that kind of waste space, but then I see a lot of schools who don't have, any private area to talk to anybody, or they don't have a separate intro room or any of that kind of stuff. And it is useful. I have a real aversion to trying to have a sales conversation or just any conversation with somebody when you're having to talk over class noise and when you're out in the middle of the lobby where everybody can listen in. And I found in a lot of enrollment and renewal situations, especially parents or, adults too, there'll be a lot of things they want to talk about with you. And if it's a private environment, they'll talk about it. And if it's not, they'll kind of clam up. So I want to give them an area where they're comfortable with that. If that makes sense.
Does.
Yeah.
And sorry, if anybody else is on the call, if you don't mind my putting on.
No, there's any and everybody, if they have questions, just put them in the Q&A, or I think, Bob, you made it open where anybody can ask any questions
Yes,
out
sir.
loud.
Just need to unmute and say, I
Okay.
got a question. Yep.
Yeah,
All right,
we've got a couple of minutes, so don't worry about it at all, Andy.
Okay, because right now, so I had 3,000 square feet to start, and then the dry cleaner next to me went out in the pandemic, we took over that bay. So now we've got these two side by side bays. I cut a door between the two. I've got two mats. So one mat is about 1,500 square feet. One's about 1,000 square feet. And then the rest of the space, I have a kitchenette to help serve for birthday parties and do snacks for the after school program, a cubby area that is for my camp and after school kids to put their backpacks in on their way to field trips or whatever. And then I've got the lobby area. I don't have a private office. I don't really have much in the way of storage. I store a bunch of stuff off site, but I do have a pretty good sized like activity room, which we run birthday parties in, and we do events, and we also do like the camp sort of indoor non-martial art activities, the STEM activities, arts and crafts and so forth. So I'm kind of like half and half. And I am feeling a little bit like my mat's a tiny bit underpowered, but right now my model is I do a lot of after school and camps, but I'm looking obviously to make a big change, is why I'm talking to you. And so I don't know what your thoughts are about that kind of model and kind of maybe, converting and so forth. I've got plenty of mat space, believe me. But I am potentially looking into making changes. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about where the after school program world is going, where the camp world is going.
Well, it's not that it's going away. The question is always, do you want to be a martial arts school or you want to be a daycare? And you know, I mean, one of the clients I worked with, he ended up retiring recently, but he had 4 locations. He was doing 7 million a year, you know, on the daycare side. The martial arts piece of the business, because he also had martial arts schools attached to all of them, was much more profitable, both in terms of overall total profitability, but his percentage to the bottom line as well. So, you know, if you want to be in the daycare business, it's a fine business to be in. And if you want to be in the daycare plus summer camp, you know, he did I think easily $1 million over each summer on the summer camp as well. It's a fine business to be in. What I find is most martial artists end up in the daycare business because they can't figure out how to make a profitable martial arts school. And so what happens more typically with our guys is they end up, you know, working their way out of and then shutting down the after school care because they end up making significantly more money from the martial arts program with significantly fewer headaches and less liability.
Well, I
so
hear
it-
you on that.
Yeah,
What's
so-
what's the timeline to move out of that potentially?
90 days.
For real?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. What I know I knew, but what's your total revenue now? I don't have my notepad in front of me. Did you hear what I said? What are you grossing totally right now? Did we lose him?
I'm not sure, sir.
Okay.
But I know Andy's already set a follow-up with you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe you have a chat on Monday.
Yeah.
And-
We'll follow up, Andy. But you know, the difference is, you know, our schools with, you know, a normal twice a week or other martial arts program are trending into the 350 to 400 a month average revenue per student. And so if you can have 300 students and gross 100,000 a month or more, you know, the justification for owning vans or contracting that out and feeding kids and having them there from 3 until 6 o'clock, 15 hours a week. And the biggest problem with after school care is square footage and payroll. So again, you know, Krista was surviving on after school care. Her gross is a lot higher now without the after school care, and her net is like quadruple what it was than it was before with the after school care. Is just one example, Bob, that you know well. Bob,
Yeah.
we're about out of time, and I got to pop into our other meeting.
Got a live event going on. Yeah, all our members are out there.
Yeah.
Exciting weekend.
Well, everybody will be here tomorrow, but we've got you know, our start for our new guys, which we have a few $1 million schools here today, so that's always helpful to get them to hands on and to interact with that.
Yeah.
But again, Andy, Virgil, everybody else, you know, our model is always the create as simple an operation as possible, systematize everything. If it can be automated, automate it, you know, but regardless, systematize, and to create as highly profitable an operation with as high a quality, best student retention as possible, and then be able to just open the floodgates and fill up the school. And again, there's nothing particularly unique about this spring. Is we have schools I mean, we've had some that you know, they had a little slower first quarter than last year, and some that had a much busier first quarter than last year. But it's just about taking massive action and doing the right things. So it's certainly not an off year, but I certainly think the rest of the year, you know, this, if you play it right, will be the best year you've ever had. On that note, anything else, Bob, and we'll call it a day.
No, sir. I believe that was it. You know, feel free to give me a call. My number's up there, 720-256-0208.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. This is Virgil.
You're very welcome, Virgil.
Yep,
Bye,
no
guys.
problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.